After 20 years of gardening, one thing that I know very confidently about myself is that having a blank slate is both very exciting and very intimidating. This summer I bought a new home and it is the perfect blank slate. It's a residential property with a really generous 0.25 of an acre of space, and it has tons of potential. There's at least 2,000 square feet of flat, full sun, great for a vegetable garden. There's lots of slope, there's full shade, there's part shade. There's a whole mix of things that make it so I can do different things that I've never tried before. There also is problems. The soil isn't great. There's lots of rocks that slope. These are all challenges that I've never had to deal with before. But I've had a community garden plot where I learned how to manage my time of having a growing space that's away from my home. I've had a residential yard that I turned into a permaculture food forest, and I've also had a farm. So I think I'm ready. I got the skills and I got the enthusiasm to take on this challenge. So today I'm gonna give you just a quick tour of my yard, and I'm going to show you all the ideas and the projects that I have in the works over the next year. One of the things that I was most excited about for this property is this big, beautiful backyard. And it really is the spot that is absolutely a blank slate. The people that I purchased it from had just put in this retaining wall, which made a really nice flat space down at the bottom. But when I moved here in the summer, there was nothing growing. There wasn't even, you know, the weedy bits around me. And I was really nervous because the soil looked almost like fill to me. So I've actually been pretty happy to see these weeds pop up as I've kind of watered the few trees in the yard, because it means something will grow. My real estate agent probably thought I was a little crazy because in my list of things my house had to have was enough bedrooms for me and the kids and 2,000 square feet of full sun exposure that would be good for having a vegetable garden. And so this spot right here in the yard is what made me be able to purchase this place. This is a nice big space and it is full sun. In fact, it's so much full sun, the sun just cooks down on it all afternoon, that my house actually struggles to run the air conditioner. I keep my air conditioning at 28 Celsius, which is very high, and it, like, if I wanted it to be colder, I couldn't. It's so hot. So I'm really excited about the potential of this area to grow things like tomatoes and peppers and all those heat-loving plants. Like, I'll probably be able to get really good harvests without even having greenhouse type structures for it. But before I can do any of that, I need to remove these trees. When they put in this retaining wall type stuff, you know, they had plans to try to deal with how much heat is here, and so they put in this huge patch of birch trees. There's also a few cherry trees that were planted here that I've already dug up because I have access to cherries without growing them myself. But if I allowed these trees to keep growing, yeah, then I'm not gonna have my full sun. So these need to get dug out, and it's the perfect time. These were planted in the spring. They're gonna dig up really easily, and I'll be able to pass them on to another home. They'll transplant really nicely in this cooler weather. The one thing that I'm worried about this area though is, you know, this is kind of the soil that I'm dealing with. I don't know how much of these like stones and crush type thing have been spread around while they were putting in the retaining wall and doing the hardscaping that they've done in the spring, or if this is just what the dirt looks like. Trying to dig in here is really, really challenging. It's just big rocks, you know, there's no worms in this soil. So one of the things that I really need to get done this fall, so that I'm prepared to do all this gardening come spring, is I want to get a till done in this area so I can kind of see what's actually under the surface. I can turn up everything and see, is it rocks like this throughout the entire space, or is there just, you know, some mess on the top? And then I'm gonna be bringing in a dump truck full of compost and just, you know, hopefully spreading this entire area with a few inches. The reason that I'm starting over with a new home and a new yard is because I'm going through a divorce. And while it's exciting to be planning a brand new garden and to have a large project to work on, ending a relationship and restarting your life on a new path is stressful. Which is why I'm excited to share the Paired app with you all. Paired is a relationship app designed to help couples stay in love. It offers daily conversation starters and expert-backed advice to strengthen communication and deepen emotional connection, making the journey of staying in love more enjoyable and meaningful. I actually looked for a tool like this a few years ago and would have been super excited to have found the Paired app, because I really think small daily connections is what a healthy relationship is built on. I set up the Paired app with an important man in my life, my Snuggie. We've been having some communication issues. He's been biting me when he wants me to pet him, and I think we can have more meaningful conversations. So we started a journey together to master good communication, and I learned that Snugs uses licking me to connect. We can also celebrate our milestones together in the timeline, like our first movie snuggle at the new house. Crazy cat lady jokes aside, I really like this app. It gives you 3 varied daily tasks and motivates you to get a streak going, but it doesn't overwhelm you with work, which keeps it fun and manageable. There is tons to explore, and it also explains why these questions are important. And I was shocked at how affordable the price was. It's cheaper than a date for the whole year. Click my link below so you can get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium so you can strengthen and deepen your connection with your partner. The area down here is really large. There's definitely more than 2,000 square feet for me to work with, but the problem is, for the vegetable gardening, what I really need is that full sun. There's very few things that actually grow well when it comes to vegetables in shade or in part shade. And so at about this point in the yard, this starts to be quite shaded. Today, you know, it's not very clear because it's kind of overcast through the entire yard, but all the trees in the corner here, the way the sun comes up and over, it's at a little bit of an angle, and so all of these trees make it so this entire area of the yard is actually full shade. This is really deep shade here, and I don't think it would get enough sun to grow any sort of vegetables, and this kind of needs to be, you know, shade garden type space. So one of the things that I'm hoping to do in this area, in the corner over here, is I'm going to put in a shed. One of the problems with the place here is that there's no garage. There's a carport that's great for, you know, being able to park my vehicle and not getting snow on it. And there is another shed up here that already came built. But this shed is really beautiful and really great. But I have so much stuff, right? I have all my growing stuff. I need a space also for some sort of, like, you know, indoor growing where I don't really have that available inside the house. So I'm going to need another shed just for, like, storage. Things like bikes and, you know, a lawnmower, which I'm hoping I don't actually need. I'm hoping no grass. You know, we gotta stick with this theme. I don't need a lawnmower if I don't have any grass, right? Yeah, so in this corner here, I'm hoping to get, you know, a 10 by 10 shed, kind of the largest size that you're legally allowed to have. And that will kind of fill up this area. And then also behind me, this area is quite shaded as well too. And they've put down some sort of crush padding here. So this is kind of this leveled off little spot. Apparently they were planning on putting in a fire pit, and I think that's a pretty great idea. So I'm going to put in a small fire pit, create a small seating area here, because yet again, it's really shaded. It's not gonna be some ideal growing space. And also, I don't really wanna dig up all this crush that they've laid out so nicely. So we're gonna go with someone else's plan. You know, it's so much fun to be able to have a fire I'm very lucky the area that I'm in. It's one of the few areas like in the surrounding communities where you can have like actual wood fires. So it's one of the benefits about living in my community. So I gotta take advantage and build a fire pit. Coming up along this way, they didn't put in the retaining wall, so there's, you know, good access up for the rest of the yard. They had planted an apple tree, which the kids were super excited about. There was 2 apples on the apple tree, and I suspect that this is actually like a mixed variety tree, because there was a green Granny Smith apple, and then there was a tiny red one that was really sweet. And they were just so different that I'm like, I don't think this is this is the tree messing up. I think that they've actually grafted different varieties of apple onto the same tree, that's kind of amazing. That's exactly what I would have wanted to put in. So I'm gonna keep this tree here. And then my daughter really wants berries. We need berries, we need fruit. We need raspberries, she wants blueberries. I love currants, gooseberries, all those types of things. Raspberries, did I say that? We're saying twice because that's how many I want of them. And so I'm hoping that this area, because there is a little bit of sun that comes in here. This is less deep shade in this little pocket. And so I'm hoping that I can start to get some berries into this area and kind of fill it in a little bit more densely while still keeping a path up to be able to get to the shed that's already here. I am really excited about this shed. It's a gorgeous shed. Apparently the old owner was a woodworker, and so he built this as his workshop. I have it kind of just filled with random things right now, but I have big plans for this. It's really nicely designed. It has these shelves, this nice workspace. It is built with tons of plugins so that you can have power in here, lights, windows. These are all incredible things for a shed. But it's gonna be cold in here because there's no insulation. So what I'm hoping to do in here is this winter, I wanna get it insulated and I wanna get it sealed in. And then I am going to use this space to hopefully grow seedlings. I'm hoping that with a space heater in here and the insulation to hold in the heat, it'll be warm enough that I can have a seedling rack inside here, growing the plants that, you know, I'm gonna be placing out into the garden. And then also kind of, this will be my seed storage space. This is where all my plants will be kept. This is where all my growing supplies will be. You know, I'll basically turn this into my workshop. You know, in the summer, this can be where I work with flowers. I can put hooks up along the ceiling and I can be drying flowers in here as well. I'm really excited about kind of turning this into a workshop for myself. You know, it's gonna be my she shed, right? Everyone wants a she shed, and I have a beautiful structure to start with. When I moved in here, they had this really cute little garden. It was all planted up. They had lettuce and carrots and nasturtiums and some peas growing up. It was kind of fun to move in and have something growing. And so me and the kids did the best we could to keep it alive. But this really isn't a great spot to have a garden. It gets so hot because the wall of the house just radiates back the heat in the afternoon. It just cooks. And it also doesn't get a lot of sun in the morning because the house actually blocks any sort of light from coming here until about noon. One of the great things about this spot, though, is it is one of the few spots that's actually flat, other than, you know, where I'm hoping to put the vegetable garden. So my plan for this space, this might not happen, you know, in 2025 because, you know, the budget is a little constrained for what I can do, but I think this would be a great spot to put in a greenhouse. I imagine like one of those beautiful kind of Victorian style glass greenhouses in a space like this. This would be the perfect size for what I need, a space to be able to, you know, grow on those seedlings after they've grown for a little bit in the shed, bring them out here, a great space to use in the spring, And then come the summer when it's super hot, I wouldn't necessarily need to use it, but it would still look really attractive. It would be a really nice centerpiece. So if I could get a beautiful glass greenhouse in here, I would be beyond excited. The other area in this yard that there's nothing here. So like what I really want to do is get the entire backyard into something. I don't want it to just be weeds and dirt for next year. So this slope, I'm not going to do anything to level it off. I'm not going to put in more retaining walls. I'm not going to, try to terrace it at all. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to turn this into like a more ornamental planting, and I'm just going to plant things on the slope. I don't have a lot of money to spend on this project, right? I need to prioritize, what's the most important. And for me at this point, what's the most important is making sure that I get that vegetable garden in that system. I want to prioritize, spending a lot of money on soil. I'm budgeting up to $1,000 on getting some soil in. It's gonna cost me hundreds of dollars to insulate the shed. It's Canada, things are expensive up here. So what I'm going to be doing in here is I'm going to be gathering up all the bits and pieces that people have gifted me and planting it so that something is growing. The one thing that I've learned, with starting multiple gardens, with starting the farm, is it can be really intimidating to put something into the ground because you want to make sure that you get it right, but you never get it right. So it's better to just get started. You can always take stuff out. Right? So getting perennials in here, like it doesn't matter if I'm going to be digging them up in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Having something here will make me happy. It'll grow nicely, and I can always transplant it to a different spot or gift it to someone else if I decide to revamp the plan and have something new. So at the farm, there is about 400 Autumn Joy sedum that I've just been sitting around with no use. So I'm gonna bring them here, and I'm basically gonna just cover this hillside with Autumn Joy. And then I also was gifted a bunch of plants from a friend that I'll show you next. A couple days ago, a friend of mine invited me over to her farm that she's taking down. She had some perennials that she planted 2 years ago, and she told me to help myself, and I was beyond excited at the options that she was willing to share with me. She had a huge patch of a really gorgeous salvia in the blue purple and then the really pretty like pinky purple. And so I took a bunch of that. They're these gorgeous 2-year-old plants, and she's grown them so well. So they're really beautiful. So I'm excited to have enough of the salvia that I can, in with the sedum, I can create kind of almost hedging to go along with it. So I think this is gonna look really pretty out there. And then this variety, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I know that it gets enough length that I can use it for cut flowers too. And then she also included a few other bits and pieces that I could help myself to. So I got some really pretty pink yarrow. I love yarrow, it's my favorite. So I'm glad to have some of that. And then a really nice sized bee balm. This is like one of the red pink ones, and it doesn't get as tall as me. It's a lot more reasonable, kind of 2-3 feet tall. And then finally, I got a bunch of a really pretty double feverfew, and they're just gorgeous plants. So mixing that in to the bed is, it's going to give me this really nice backbone structure that I can then come along and I can mix in my annual cut flowers that, I want. I can kind of create it just this like wild overflowing space. I can put trees and shrubs mixed into it, and I can slowly kind of just let it be beautiful, be functional, without putting a lot of pressure on myself for it to be perfect. This is a brand new garden This is a brand new project, brand new home. It's gonna take years before it's gonna be exactly what I want it to be. And you know, 5 years from now, exactly what I want it to be is probably gonna be totally different. You know, that's the fun of gardening. You make your dream garden and then you enjoy it and then you redo it again. So it's always fun and always keeping your interest. But before I can plant these, I have another project. Before I put the perennials in the ground, I have a couple thousand of the might grow tulip bulbs left over from the spring at the farm, and so I need to get those into the ground first. I basically, on that hillside, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna do a bunch of trenches and I'm just gonna fill it in with these crates of bulbs that I have, because these need to be kind of planted at a bit more of a depth than the perennials. You know, I'm gonna, so wish me luck, guys. I always say for the last years when I've been planting the tulips for cut flowers, it's easy to plant them for cut flowers because you just are filling in trenches. It's very fast. But anyone who tried to plant thousands of bulbs into their residential gardens, I feel sorry for them because I know how much work it would be. So I feel a little bit sorry for myself this year that I've decided to take on trying to plant all these, but I know I'll appreciate them in years to come because these will come back year after year. I have all this stuff stored on the side of my house because this is a spot that I'm really excited about. This is pure shade. It's nice and cool, it's nice and dark, it's nice and moist in this area, and this is a growing condition that I've never had before. I've never had true shade, so I've never been able to do a shade garden, which is some of my favorite growing and favorite plants of all. Because I love shade gardens so much, even though this is an area that, you know, I could kind of leave. It has this like grass, it has this tree, it doesn't need me to revamp it, but I want to, right? Like I want to get that shade garden as soon as possible. So this is the other part of the yard that I'm going to prioritize for spending some money and getting some labor. This is going to be a little bit more of a spring project though. So what I plan to do is I'm going to buy a ton of hostas, I'm going to buy a ton of hellebores, I'm going to get some heuchera, I'm going to get all these shade plants that I love so much, and I'm going to fill this entire area in. You know, I will have some sort of path down to the gate, but my plan is to, you know, basically make this so that there is nothing. It is just going to be those plants. It's very hot and very dry here in the Okanagan, so a lot of those shade plants do suffer in our heat. They need more temperate weather, they need more moisture. So as soon as I get those plants into the ground, the next thing I'm gonna need to prioritize for them is getting some sort of mulch in. So as I said, I have a budget this year for getting a bunch of compost, covering the entire backyard with compost, you know, but for part of my budget of what I can afford this year, or 2025 I should say, is buying up all these plants. I'll probably spend about $1,000 on shade plants, and then, you know, I may actually need to get $300 or $400 worth of mulch to be able to mulch this entire area. What I've basically shared with you guys so far is just my backyard, and you know, that really is where a lot of my focus is because it had been completely ripped up. It's, you know, it's looked really unattractive. I'm sure the neighbors are like, big dirt weed patch. I'm sure they'll be happy to see me turning it into something. Up here though is kind of, it's been done with really simple landscaping. You know, this type of stuff doesn't even really need that much water. I think I watered up here like once in the summer because it was getting a little dry. So up here doesn't really need me to be forced to do anything. So depending on how my budgeting goes, this is going to be kind of, in the next few years, I'd like to work on it. If I can like get my income in order though, what I would love to get done sooner than later is removing these trees. If I took out these pine trees, and I took out this evergreen hedge, this would actually be a really great area for doing some of the vegetables that are going to struggle in the heat in the backyard. This is the type of area where greens would grow really nicely. This evergreen hedge is here because it is quite sloped. I'm able to get a good idea of, you know, exactly what's going on here because all the neighbor properties kind of are dealing with the same, you know, same mountainside. So people have either done these kind of like plantings that hold erosion preventing plantings, or they've come in and they've actually built in retaining walls. My dad found some cheap blocks, a friend of his or online or something, and so he bought me up like, you know, 2 trucks worth of retaining wall materials. So when I'm ready, I have stuff to be able to work on this, and it would be really nice to be able to terrace it to get like an extra parking spot for guests at the top, and then kind of have a couple levels here, you know, and turn this into some like really nice growing. It gets full sun in the morning, but then it starts to get shaded at about 5 o'clock up here in the summer, which is when it starts to get really, really hot. So, you know, there's a lot of really exciting potential up here for when I have the energy and the money to be able to work on it. One of the things that I really like about this place is that the size of this lot is really deceiving. You know, the backyard is large. It's really nice. So it's like, oh yeah, look, you have a nice big backyard, but you know, these side yard spaces are also very, very large. Like they're, you know, I'm so used to residential houses kind of being like the houses being so close together. The distance between the houses here is what really buys a lot more yard space. So in the same way, there's that huge space where I'm going to put in the shade garden. Over here, I have just as much space. And it's a little bit less obvious of where my yard goes. But this tree even here, this is on my property line. So there is, you know, there's a lot of space to work with here. This spot is a little intimidating for me. It hasn't been as well kept. You know, there's like shrubs and bushes and weeds and everything mixed in here. So I don't have a plan for this area yet, but it's still so exciting to know. Even with all the plans that I already have, I still have space to make more plans again. So yeah. I'm very, very excited about this yard, you know, and hopefully you guys are a little excited too. And thank you to the Paired app for sponsoring this video. Link down below.